The phone buzzed once. I opened my eyes, blinked at the dark. No noise. Just that soft pulse of light from the nightstand. I reached for it. 3:08 a.m. Dylan. Mom, I know you bought the car and pay for Mateo's school, but Sophie doesn't want you at his party. Don't come. I stared at the screen, read it again, then typed back, understood, and hit send. I sat up slowly. My back ached. The house felt colder than usual. My slippers were by the foot of the bed, but I didn't reach for them. Just sat there, phone in hand, breathing. Downstairs, the dining room light was still on. I hadn't turned it off. The cake was there. Chocolate 3 layers made from scratch like always. Mateo's name was written in blue frosting. I'd practiced the letters on parchment first to make sure they looked right. I'd wrapped the presents last night, 2 books of puzzle, and a small Lego set. Nothing flashy, just things I knew he'd love. They sat next to the cake, tied in red ribbon. I looked at the whole table. One side of me wanted to laugh, the other just folded in. It wasn't the message. Not really. It was the hour. The way he waited till after midnight like a coward. It was the word but. I know you bought the car. But. I know you pay the tuition. But. And after the but, the knife always came. I sat down at the table. Looked at the chair where Mateo usually sat when he visited. I'd saved a little banner for him to hang. It was still in the drawer. No tears. Just that tight feeling in the throat like something was pressing from the inside. They could have said it earlier. They could have pretended. I picked up the cake knife, unwrapped it, and cut a slice. Put it on a plate. Took 1 bite. Too sweet. I left the rest. The clock ticked. 3:27. I cleaned up slowly, wrapped the cake back in foil, unplugged the coffee machine I'd set for 7 a.m. No one would need it now. Back upstairs, I passed by the guest room. Mateo's room, his spare clothes folded in the drawer, his little toothbrush still in the holder. I closed the door. Back in my room, I opened the bottom drawer of the nightstand. There behind the old manuals and expired coupons was the folder. Thick, neatly labeled. A copy of the car title, Mateo's tuition records, receipts, letters, my husband's will. Everything was there. Signed, filed. I hadn't looked at it in months. I placed the folder on the bed beside me. Then I reached over, turned off the lamp, and stared into the dark. Still silent, steady. I could already see the next move. I started the car before I had time to second guess. No makeup, no coffee, no plan. I pulled out of the driveway and turned toward Dylan's neighborhood. The sun was just coming up, muted orange, pushing through gray. The streets were quiet. I knew the shortcut, knew when traffic started, knew exactly how long it would take to get there without anyone noticing me. I wasn't going to knock. Just drive by, just see. His street was lined with cars. I slowed down, hands tight on the wheel. Someone had tied blue balloons to the mailbox. A big silver number 7 floated in the yard, tangled with ribbon. Streamers everywhere. Fold-out chairs. Kids playing tag in the grass. Adults holding paper cups. The kind of scene they send to family group chats. I kept moving. Rolled to a slow stop across the street behind a parked SUV. Through the front window, I saw the dining table. It was covered with food, burgers, juice boxes, a sheet cake. Not mine. Store-bought. A photo frame sat beside the gift table. I leaned forward. The frame held 4 photos. Dylan, Sophie, Mateo, Sophie's parents. Not me. Not even the baby photo I took of Mateo in my old living room, wrapped in the same blanket my mother made for Dylan. Erased. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. Sophie had already posted. So grateful for family today. Couldn't have done it without the ones who matter most. Blessed, celebrating Mateo 68 likes, comments from her cousins, from Dylan's coworkers, from people who knew me. I sat in the car for 5 full minutes, then backed out slow and quiet and drove 3 blocks over. Parked by the pharmacy. My hands were shaking. I didn't cry. Not because I didn't want to, but because it wouldn't help. I'd been through enough years of loss to know tears never changed anything. Not when you were alone in the car. Not when you were replaced. I stared at the screen. I zoomed into the photo. Her parents stood where I used to. The front porch. The banner. Mateo grinning in between them. My grandson in a shirt I'd bought, standing next to the people who decided I wasn't needed. I turned off the phone, dropped it in the passenger seat. They knew what they were doing. You don't forget someone by accident. You don't crop them out of the photo unless you mean to. I sat there until the balloon shadows started fading from the street. Then I turned the key and drove back. Not to sulk, not to beg, but to start sorting the things they'd forgotten I still had. I knocked 3 times. No answer. I waited, shifted the bag in my hand, knocked again, lighter this time. Sophie opened the door halfway, one arm still behind it, like she was shielding something. Or someone. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Oh, next time maybe call first. I held up the gift bag. Just dropping something off for Mateo. She glanced down, then stepped back exactly 1 inch. Not enough to invite me in. Just enough so I could pass the bag through the crack. I didn't move. Is he home? She hesitated. He's resting. Long week. Lot of excitement. I didn't push, just nodded. My hand stayed up with the bag dangling. After a moment, she took it from me, her fingers barely brushing mine. Thanks, she said. That's thoughtful. I heard nothing from inside. No footsteps. No voice calling out. Is Dylan working? She said quickly. I looked past her shoulder. The hallway was dark. No TV sounds. No toys on the floor. The air between us thinned. He liked the cake, I asked. Her smile tightened. Oh. We didn't end up using it. There was a mix-up with the bakery. But thank you. I nodded again. My heart felt heavy in my ribs. She adjusted the strap of her dress like the conversation was a wrinkle she wanted to smooth. We've been meaning to reach out, she added too lightly. Of course, I said. We stood there. She didn't ask me in. I didn't offer to stay. All right, I won't keep you, I said. She leaned the door in. Take care, okay? The door clicked shut before I'd stepped off the mat. I walked back to the car. My fingers clenched and unclenched on the keys. I didn't start the engine right away. Just sat with the windows rolled up, letting the heat build. I don't know why I thought it would be different. I'd told myself it was just the party, just a misunderstanding, just nerves. But I'd felt it in her tone, that I was inconvenient, that Mateo was theirs now, and I didn't have a place in that sentence. I pulled out of the driveway and drove past the park where I used to take Dylan on weekends. I passed the coffee shop where I waited during Sophie's labor. I turned right onto the street that used to feel like part of my own. At home, I opened the drawer in the hallway. Inside were the birthday cards I'd written every year since Mateo was born. 7 of them. Each one signed in blue ink. A note, a memory, a photo tucked inside. None ever returned. None acknowledged. I sat on the floor and read each one in silence. Then I placed them all into a shoebox, closed the lid, and carried it upstairs. I opened the door to the guest room and stopped cold. The quilt was gone. So were the shelves. The train set I kept for Mateo packed. My late husband's armchair missing. The dresser had been emptied, its drawers open like mouths mid-sentence. And in the corner, new bins sat stacked. bright plastic. Labeled with Sophie's handwriting, baby gear spare diapers. Toys from our place. I stepped back. I hadn't given permission. I hadn't even been told. I walked to the garage. My boxes were there, stacked crookedly between paint cans and the water heater. One was torn open. A photo album poked out from under a roll of tarp. I reached for it, brushed off sawdust. The label read Dylan, ages 6 to 10. I opened it. First page, his first camping trip. My husband's arms around him by the fire. Marshmallows, grass stains, missing teeth. I closed the album. Walked back inside and sat at the kitchen table. 5 minutes passed before I dialed his number. He picked up. Hey, Mom. Did you move the guest room? He hesitated. Yeah, just making some space. You know, in case Mateo wants sleepovers. You didn't ask. It's still your house, he said, like it was a compliment. No, it isn't, I said. There was a pause. We figured it was time to freshen things up, make it more useful. Sophie thought. Sophie's not on the deed, he laughed softly. Mom, it's not that serious. You moved my things without asking. We didn't throw anything out. That's not the point. Silence. Look, he said Mateo might stay more if the space feels more like home. We're trying here. I already gave him a home, I said. You grew up in it. He sighed, frustrated now. You're overthinking this. Am I? He didn't answer. I hung up. I spent the next hour repacking the boxes properly, taping the flaps, labeling them myself. Then I opened the bottom drawer of my file cabinet and took out the manila folder, same one from that night. The one with everything they pretended not to know still existed. I placed it on the kitchen table right next to my mug. The next morning, I'd be visiting someone I hadn't spoken to in months. I pulled the folder open and laid every page out flat on the table. First, the car title. My name. No co-owner. Registration fees, insurance policy paid by me. Dylan signed nowhere. Then the tuition invoices, each semester, each payment date, each confirmation email printed and highlighted. I traced one line with my finger, paid by L. Marwick. Next, the deed. The house was still in my name. I never added his. They'd asked once for simplicity. I'd nodded politely and said I'd think about it. Then quietly tightened the paperwork. Made sure every renewal, every document, every update went through me and no one else. I picked up the last set photocopies of checks, school uniforms, Mateo's daycare fees when Sophie was still finishing her certificate program. I'd paid for 3 months straight back then while they got settled. They'd forgotten all of it. Or maybe not forgotten, just erased it from the version of the story they preferred. I gathered the pages, sorted them by type, and slid them into plastic sleeves. There was something comforting in the sound of the plastic snapping. This folder wasn't just paper. It was memory. Proof that I'd been there the whole time. Proof I wasn't crazy. Proof I hadn't imagined what I gave. I picked up my pen and wrote 3 names on a sticky note. Greer, Sanders, Lowell. 3 lawyers I'd dealt with over the last 15 years. Greer handled the estate. Sanders helped me refinance after James passed. Lowell was the one who looked over the car purchase, warned me not to co-sign unless I wanted to be liable. I'd listened. I'd kept my name clean. I closed the folder and clipped the sticky note on top. Then I placed it in my tote bag and sat quietly, letting the weight of it settle against my side. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like air. Like I could breathe again. They thought they'd pushed me out. But I'd never left. I stood, made coffee, sat with the mug in my hand. Tomorrow I'd call Greer first. I dialed the number before I could talk myself out of it. Carlos Greer answered on the second ring. Same clipped tone. Same calm voice I remembered from James's will. "Mrs. Marwick," he said. "Been a while?" "It has," I said. "You still have that office near the courthouse, I do. You want a morning slot or something more discreet?" "Discreet." He gave me a time. No small talk. I arrived 10 minutes early and waited in the car. Watched people file into the building. No one looked my way. At exactly 10:15, I knocked on his office door. He stood when I entered. Trim suit silver at the temples now, but still the same steady presence. "Have a seat." I handed him the folder. No explanation, just laid it down and waited. He flipped through each document. Slow, thorough. His brows lifted at the receipts. Paused longer at the deed. Ran a finger along the tuition statements like he was tracing a timeline. Then he looked up. "You've kept everything." "I had to." "Good. Because you're still on every deed and contract. Every one of these is airtight. Dylan's name shows up nowhere. Neither does hers. They think they own the house. They don't. They think they can keep me out." He sat back in the chair. "What do you want to do?" I didn't answer right away. I looked down at the corner of the folder. The edge of a check stub poked out one I'd written for Mateo's last Christmas gifts. I slid it back into place. "I want to wait. Just a little longer." "You're holding a loaded deck," he said. "You don't need to wait. I want to see how far they'll go." He studied me. "You've changed. I had to." He nodded, then reached into his drawer and pulled out a new business card. Pressed it into my palm. "You call when you're ready." Not a minute before. I closed my fingers around it. "Thank you, Carlos. You were always the quiet one in those meetings, but I remember how you looked at the numbers. Always knew you had the sharpest eye in the room." I stood, slipped the card into my coat pocket. He didn't walk me out. Didn't need to. Outside, I zipped my coat up tight, stepped into the wind and kept walking straight past my car. I needed a few more blocks before I could sit still. Because now I had confirmation. Now I had a lawyer. And now I had time. I opened the envelope and saw the total, same as last month. $1.124.36. I logged into the portal, clicked submit, and watched the confirmation screen load. Payment successful. No one had asked if I'd keep paying. They just assumed. The school still had my email, my card on file, my name under primary sponsor. I made the mistake of checking Sophie's social media that night. A picture of Mateo in his uniform. Backpack slung over one shoulder. Big grin. Same grin Dylan had at that age. The caption read, "Hard work pays off. Proud of our little man private school life. No handouts." I stared at it for a full minute. Then again. No handouts. I scrolled down. Comments poured in. "You guys are such great parents. Self-made love to see it. That uniform looks expensive, good for you both." Sophie replied to each one. Hearts, prayers, fire emojis. No mention of the woman wiring $1.124.36 every month, while sitting in a quiet kitchen with no birthday cake, no thank you card, no framed photo on the shelf. I closed the app, tossed the phone onto the table. My hands shook, not with rage, with something slower, colder. I didn't want credit, but I wanted honesty. I stood up, opened the drawer, pulled out the printed receipts, one for each payment. I flipped through them like a book, chapter by chapter, month by month. Each one had a date, a transaction ID, my name at the bottom. I clipped them together, then I made 2 copies. One for Carlos, one for me. I placed mine back in the folder. The other I slid into an envelope and wrote his name across the front. Then I walked to the cabinet, reached high behind the pasta boxes, pulled out a second folder, the one I hadn't touched since James died. Inside were documents we never needed. Until now. Estate backup, alternate plans, early drafts of amendments we never filed. I tucked the new receipts inside, labeled the tab Education. I poured coffee, no sugar, no cream. And I stared at the calendar on the fridge. Next tuition due date, October 1st. They'd get one more payment. But I'd get something too. I called Dylan. It rang once, then went to voicemail. I texted, just checking in on Mateo. Hope he's doing all right. No reply. 2 days later, I called again. Blocked. I tried the school, asked to speak to Mateo's teacher. The receptionist paused, then said, "I'm sorry, Ms. Marwick. We've been asked not to share updates unless the legal parents provide written consent. But I'm the financial sponsor. I understand. But we're not authorized." I hung up. My chest burned, not from anger, from the weight, like someone was sitting on my ribs. I called Carlos. He answered before the second ring. "They've cut contact," I said. All of them. Sophie blocked me. Dylan won't answer. School says I need parental permission. They're building distance on purpose, trying to make you irrelevant while still taking your money. Can we stop them? Legally? Yes. But it depends what you want to expose and when. I want something drafted. What kind? Full asset record. Timeline of contributions. Statement of intent to revoke financial support unless access is restored. You want to send it now? No. Just prepare it. He paused. You're not looking for a fight, are you? No. I'm just not walking blind anymore. By the end of the week, the document was done. 10 pages. Organized. Precise. My initials on each page. My signature on the last. Carlos couriered it to me in a flat envelope. I didn't open it. Just slid it behind the drawer divider next to the receipts and the folder marked Education. That night, I sat on the porch. Drank my coffee cold. No texts, no calls, no invitations. But I didn't reach out again. I'd already said what needed to be said. They just chose not to hear it. I pressed the key into the lock and turned. The box slid out heavier than I remembered. The banker left me alone, closing the door behind him. Quiet. Respectful. Just like the last time I came 7 years ago after the funeral. I placed the box on the table. Flipped the lid. First the will. The original thick with notarized signatures. James's handwriting on the margins. My name still the executor. Dylan named as secondary, but only if jointly approved by spouse, a clause James insisted on. I'd forgotten that part. Then the USB. Labeled in my writing 2015-2021 records, every bank transfer, investment change, property update, account statement, all backed up and time-stamped. At the bottom, 2 folded forms. One blank, one filled in. The blank one was fresh. A standard beneficiary reassignment for the house and accounts. Still unsigned. The filled-in one was older. It named Dylan as co-beneficiary, but with a condition only if he remained in good standing, defined by a paragraph of criteria, care contact contribution. The form was dated, but never filed. We'd drafted it after Mateo was born. I remembered the night. James had poured coffee, said, "We protect what we build, but we don't reward disrespect." I sat still. My thumb pressed the corner of the blank form. I didn't lift it. Didn't sign. Not yet. I closed the lid. Pushed the box back into place. Turned the key. The banker returned. Walked me out. Didn't ask questions. Back in the car, I stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror. No makeup, no earrings. Hair pulled back in a tight band. I looked like someone they wouldn't expect to hold leverage. But I did. And I wasn't finished. Carlos called at noon. "Come in today," he said. "I found something." I didn't ask what. I just got in the car. His office smelled the same dry paper ink, a trace of dust. He motioned for me to sit and laid a document in front of me, separate from the file he'd reviewed before. A single page, signed, stamped, witnessed. James's handwriting in the margins again. Your husband filed a codicil, Carlos said, 3 months before he died. I missed it the first time because it was registered separately under the estate trust file. But it's valid. I read the header addendum to last will and testament of James Marwick. Then I read the clause. If at any point any beneficiary by blood or marriage excludes, isolates, or materially disrespects Lenora Marwick, they forfeit all direct claims to property, income, or asset transfer from this estate. Final decision of forfeiture rests solely with Lenora Marwick in consultation with her legal counsel. I reread it. Twice. He put this in by himself, I asked. Carlos nodded. Didn't tell you no. Then maybe he knew what was coming. I sat back in the chair. My hands stayed flat on my lap. So Dylan still has his name on a few draft forms, but none of them filed, no transfers made. If you wanted to invoke this clause, you could. Legally, ethically, it holds. And Sophie. She married into potential, nothing more. Unless you approve otherwise, she has no automatic rights. I exhaled. Sharp. Quiet. James had seen it. Maybe not the details, but the shape of it. The way silence swells. The way people edge you out inch by inch, pretending it's kindness. Carlos leaned forward. You've been patient. Too patient. You want to act, not yet. Why? Because they're still playing polite. And when that ends, then I end it. Carlos handed me a sealed envelope. Your copy. I'll keep the original in case this goes to court. It won't. He raised an eyebrow. You sound certain. I am. Because you'll forgive them. No. I stood, folded the envelope, and tucked it into my bag. Because they'll reveal themselves first. I walked out before he could answer. The sun had dipped lower. The street shimmered with heat. My feet moved steady across the pavement. I didn't look back. I pulled the stationery box down from the top shelf, dusted it off, chose the green envelope on purpose. It wasn't bright, just enough to be remembered. I sat at the kitchen table, pen in hand, and wrote his name, first Mateo. Then I told the truth. How I bought the car not for status, but for safety. How I paid his school not for praise, but so he'd never miss a day like his father did. How I didn't come to his party not because I didn't love him, but because I wasn't allowed. I didn't blame. I didn't beg. I just told the story without edits. One page, then another. When I finished, I folded the letter and slid it inside, sealed the flap, wrote the date on the back. I pulled the kitchen mat aside, lifted the loose board, tucked the envelope in deep next to the old tin box of keys and the spare garage opener. Then I stood and made coffee. After the mug hit the sink, I moved to the printer, pulled open folders, fed papers through one by one. Deeds, receipts, emails, screenshots of tuition payments, every bank transfer, every utility I paid under their names. When the stack grew too high, I stapled them in bundles and slid them into labeled folders. Housing, education, vehicle, healthcare. I packed them into my tote. Then I made 3 calls. First, the county clerk confirmed my sole ownership. Second, the insurance company updated the contact info back to mine. Third, the school board asked to speak with a district administrator. I'm the sole tuition sponsor? I said, I'd like to schedule a conversation about academic guardianship options. Are you the legal guardian? No, but I'm a legal stakeholder. Check the file. My name's on every check. They paused, said they'd follow up. I knew they would. I closed the laptop, set my phone on silent, and waited. The text buzzed through at 8:42 a.m. No greeting, no punctuation, just panic. If she's not paying anymore, we're screwed, Dylan. Better fix this. I stared at it. No name, no context. But it wasn't meant for me. Seconds later, another message arrived. Hi, Lenora. Hope you're well. Quick favor. Any chance we could get a small loan? Just want to redo the backyard a little before summer. No mention of the first message. No apology. Just fake cheer and a cash request. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my notebook. Drew a short line down the center. On the left, I wrote, what I gave. On the right, what they said. Car. She needed a safe ride. Tuition. It's what grandparents should do. Mortgage float, she insisted. Utilities. She's always been controlling. Groceries. She just shows up with bags. Birthday gifts. She's a little over the top. I stared at the right column longer, then added the newest backyard loan. If she's not paying anymore, we're screwed. I closed the notebook, went to the garage. I still had the receipts from the garden center when I helped replant their first yard 3 years ago. When Dylan asked me to pick out low-maintenance shrubs because Sophie gets tired easily, I pulled the receipt out of the envelope. $1.245.82. All in my handwriting. I placed it on top of the new folder marked Personal Expenses, Marwick Residence. Then I brewed coffee. Let the steam hit my face. They hadn't just used me. They assumed the well would never run dry. That I didn't know what I'd given. That I wouldn't remember. I remembered everything. I opened my phone, typed a reply to Sophie. No, dear, I think you'll manage. And then I blocked her. I smiled. Of course, darling. Let me think about the loan. Sophie beamed smug. Dylan didn't look up from his phone. Mateo ran past us in the hallway, a blur of energy they barely noticed. No rush, she said, patting my arm like I was a clerk, not a mother. I reached into my bag, pulled out the checkbook I hadn't used in over a year, wrote the amount slowly, 6,000 even. I signed it, smiled wider. Just post-dated it for a week, I said, handing it over. Gives me time to shift some funds. She nodded, like that made sense. Didn't read it? Didn't notice the date? Didn't ask why the ink was still wet? I stood. That should help with the patio. Right backyard lighting too, she grinned. I kissed Mateo's head as he flew past again. He didn't pause, didn't even register it. Back in the car, I didn't start the engine right away. I pulled out the second document, the tuition revocation. Carlos had emailed it unsigned. I'd printed it that morning, folded it into thirds, and left it in my purse. Now I smoothed the creases, signed with calm, even strokes. Full name, date, authorization to cancel monthly automatic tuition withdrawals. I scanned it with my phone and emailed it to Carlos with one line. Please proceed. Then I deleted the message thread, deleted the scanned file, closed my eyes. Dylan wouldn't notice until the school sent the next invoice directly to him. And Sophie, she'd be busy calling landscapers, spending a check that would bounce harder than she imagined. I opened the windows, let the warm air in, and drove home slow. This wasn't cruelty, it was math. Simple correction. What they took would now return to zero. Every smile I gave was calculated. Every yes meant distance, not closeness. Every small step forward was me pulling away, quietly, deliberately, with full awareness, and they didn't see it coming. I showed up 10 minutes early, dressed simple. Slacks, flat shoes, soft gray blouse. Not to be noticed just enough to say I still belonged. The auditorium smelled like pine cleaner and warm plastic chairs. I found a seat near the back close to the wall. Row after row filled with parents, siblings, phones out. Dylan hadn't texted. No one saved me a seat. I hadn't expected them to. The lights dimmed. Children filed onto the stage, tight pants paper hats, crooked bows. Mateo stood in the second row. He didn't see me. I kept my eyes on him anyway. They began with a song, a little offbeat endearing. Then came the speeches. Small voices, thank yous to parents, a few brave kids adding, and grandparents. One girl named her grandma 3 times. The room clapped. Mateo didn't say anything. Just smiled when the teacher nudged him forward. Sophie sat front row, camera high. At intermission, I stood to stretch. That's when she saw me. Her mouth curved into something tight. She walked back slowly, pretending to check her phone. Bent down beside me. Whispered, "Glad you're finally where you belong." Her perfume was sharp, expensive. She didn't wait for a reply. I sat back down. Let the insult settle. Let the seat creak under me. I thought of the tuition payment they'd receive in 2 days marked unpaid. The bounced check on their dining table. The green envelope hidden under my floorboard. And I smiled. When the lights dimmed again, I stayed seated. But I watched. I recorded Mateo's part on my old phone. Just one clip. Just for me. After the show, families gathered for photos in the front. Balloons, streamers, cookies with little music notes. I waited until they finished. Walked down slowly. Found Mateo still holding his recorder. "You were wonderful," I said. He looked up, surprised, then smiled wide. "Grandma, I didn't see you. That's all right?" "I saw you." We hugged. Dylan hovered nearby, awkward. Silent. Sophie turned away, still holding her phone, pretending to scroll. I left before they asked me to. Got in the car. Drove home in the dark. Tomorrow, I'd see Carlos. And this time, I wouldn't be asking for quiet. I parked 2 blocks away. Let the sun hit the windshield while I waited. The invitation had arrived late, forwarded by the school. Sloppy, desperate, last minute. Mateo's birthday, backyard party, 3 p.m. Hope you can make it. No signature, no warmth, just enough plausible deniability. I brought no gift. Instead, I carried 1 envelope in my purse and watched the front gate from my car. At 3:42, a white sedan pulled up. Clean. No logo. A man stepped out, trim-billed gray blazer, clipboard in hand. Carlos had said, "You won't need to say anything. He'll do it all." I stayed seated. The courier walked up the driveway, passed through balloons, streamers, pastel bunting, past toddlers clutching juice boxes, adults by the grill, Sophie laughing loud. He reached Dylan first, spoke 1 line, then handed over the envelope. I could see it from here, thick, crisp, sealed. Another to Sophie, then 1 more to a man near the garage, Dylan's friend, I guessed. Witness. I watched Sophie's smile freeze mid-laugh. Watched Dylan drop his plastic cup. Watched silence ripple outward from them like a dropped plate. The music didn't stop, but the conversations did. People stared, then pretended not to. Dylan flipped the first page open. His lips moved, read silently. He looked up, pale, confused, then furious. Sophie grabbed his arm, yanked the packet from him, scanned fast. I knew the exact order vehicle registration pulled. Tuition sponsorship canceled retroactively. Emergency withdrawal from Mateo's trust blocked. Codicil clause activated, breach of moral clause. Forfeiture enforced. It didn't accuse, it just revoked. All legal, all silent, all immediate. I watched Sophie clench the pages. She mouthed something sharp at Dylan. He turned away, hands on his head. They didn't see me. I started the engine, turned left, drove away slow. Carlos would call tonight. Confirm signatures were served. Confirm the bank held the trust in limbo now. Confirm the codicil had teeth because disrespect had consequences. They would scramble. Try to call. but my phone was already off, and I wasn't home. I had the spare key. I waited until after midnight, drove straight through their quiet cul-de-sac. No lights, no cameras, no neighbors peeking through curtains. The SUV was parked crooked across their narrow driveway, just as Dylan always left it, blocking Sophie's car nose too far into the sidewalk. I stepped out, slid the key in, turned. It clicked on like it remembered me. Title still in my name, insurance too, maintenance bills. All charged to my card. I backed out smooth quiet. No headlights, no noise. Just the engine purring like it never belonged to them. By 2:15 a.m., it sat in my garage, covered, locked. At 9:47 a.m., I checked my phone. Sophie's social media lit up like a match. Some people are just bitter. Taking things back, they gave. Pathetic. A photo of their driveway empty. The caption below, "Family can be cruel." The comments poured in. Wait, wasn't that SUV a gift? Didn't she pay the registration? I thought that was in her name. Why post this if you don't want attention? LOL. I didn't reply. Didn't post. Didn't like. I just watched. Dylan didn't call. Not that day. Not the next. Carlos confirmed the lien release had been reversed. The insurance company switched coverage to my name only. DMV paperwork filed. No trace left behind. By Wednesday, the angry posts vanished. Sophie's page went private. I poured coffee, sat by the window. Across the street, my neighbor waved. I waved back. The SUV key sat on the table beside me. I didn't move it. I walked in holding the receipts. Not the old ones, the new, canceled checks, voided autopay, a full binder. The receptionist blinked when I gave my name. Then she nodded, quietly led me to the administrator's office. I didn't ask for Dylan. I didn't ask for Sophie. I asked for the board chair. And I waited. They came in after 15 minutes. 2 women, 1 man. Crisp suits, polite nods. They offered water. I declined. I'd like to sponsor Mateo, I said steady, directly. No parent filter, no third-party reimbursement, no hidden costs. They exchanged a glance. The older woman folded her hands. Historically, she said, we work through custodial parents. But with your record, your direct support since kindergarten. She opened Mateo's file. I saw my name. Over and over. Tuition. Summer programs. Supplies. Emergency funds. Not Dylan's. Not Sophie's. They asked one question. Will this impact the child negatively at home? I looked them in the eye. I'm not taking anything. I'm ensuring what I give goes where it should. They voted in the room. Unanimous. Mateo would receive continued enrollment under a private scholarship, anonymous to the public, but only if I remained listed as point of contact. I signed. They handed me a new access code for the parent portal, grades, behavior logs, teacher notes. The last report card had one comment from his homeroom teacher. Mateo seems distracted lately. Asked about his grandmother. I thanked them, walked out and sat in my car for 10 minutes. No tears, just breath. By afternoon, I'd emailed Carlos a scanned copy of the new agreement. By evening, Sophie's number called 3 times. I didn't pick up. I just printed the board resolution and filed it in the green envelope. Carlos moved fast. He CC'd me on the formal notice, one short paragraph that carried the weight of a gavel. Due to recent developments regarding Clause 7B of the codicil, disbursement of all trust funds is suspended pending formal review. I read it twice, then again. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I did. That same morning, Dylan texted Mom, call me. We need to talk. I didn't reply. 3 missed calls followed. By noon, Sophie sent me a voice note. Lenora, I don't know what Carlos is talking about. He says everything's frozen. Look, I know there have been misunderstandings, but we're family. Mateo deserves stability. Can you just call us back? She said us, not Dylan, not Mateo. Us. I clicked play again just to hear how fast her voice cracked around stability. Then I turned off the notifications. The next email from Carlos came with a PDF, a certified freeze on trust withdrawals, including the education account, the discretionary fund, and the vehicle allowance clause. They'd have to file a formal appeal to reverse any of it, but that appeal would go through me. Late afternoon, I stood by my kitchen window and watched the sky shift. My house felt calm. No footsteps, no slammed doors, no rushed voices asking for things. The email sat open on the screen behind me. I didn't need to read it again. I already knew what it meant. No more quiet withdrawals. No more disguised dependency. No more pretending I was invisible while they lived off my name. At 5:03, Dylan called again. I watched the screen flash, watched it stop. He left no voicemail. At 6:12, a single text came in. So this is what it's come to. I didn't answer. I sat down, poured 1 cup of coffee. No rush. I opened the drawer and took out the green envelope, checked that everything was still inside. The letter to Mateo, the school paperwork, the codicil copy. Then I added something new, a printed screenshot of Carlos's email. Dated. Signed. By 7:00. The sky outside had gone a deep, blank gray. I stood, stretched, and turned off every light in the house, all except the one over the kitchen table. The envelope stayed there, centered, waiting. I packed fast. Just 1 suitcase. Just what I needed. The rest could stay. I didn't label boxes, didn't leave instructions. I wasn't planning to return. At sunrise, I pulled into Dillon's street, stayed in the car, waited. Sophie came out first, rushing, talking on the phone, not noticing anything. Then the door opened again. Mateo stepped out, dragging his little backpack behind him. I opened the car door. Quiet. Fast. Mateo. He turned, startled, then smiled, small, unsure. I knelt down. I can't come in today, but I wanted to give you something. He glanced toward the house. No one watching. I opened the front pocket of his backpack and slid the envelope in. Green. Labeled only with his name and the year. He looked at me. Is it a present? Sort of, I said. You'll know when it's time. Then I squeezed his hand, kissed the top of his head. That's all. I got back into the car before Sophie turned around. Drove straight home. Didn't stop. By late morning, I emptied the fridge. Took the mug. Left the rest. I sealed the house. Keys on the table. Carlos had the new ownership papers, the rental contract, the forwarding address. The utilities would switch over Monday. At the front door, I paused. One last check. The floors I cleaned, the walls I painted. The chair by the window where I used to hold Dylan after nightmares. The photos were gone now. They'd taken those years ago. But the silence, this silence was mine. I stepped outside, pulled the door closed behind me, locked it, then walked to the car. Engine on. Hands steady. I didn't cry. I didn't hesitate. The road was open. The porch light turned off as I pulled away. I pour the coffee. Black. Hot. Steam curls in the morning light. The porch creaks under my steps as I walk out barefoot, mug in hand. The air here smells like dust and quiet. I like that. I sit. Wood still cool from the night. I hold the mug with both hands. It's chipped, old, stubborn, like me. The mug says still here. I didn't choose it for the words. I kept it because it never cracked. No one talks over me now. No one sighs when I speak. No one throws parties I fund but can't attend. No more rooms reassigned. No more cold doors. No more filtered photos. Just coffee. Just silence. Carlos called last week. Said the school finalized Mateo's scholarship. Said the trustee change was done. Said Dylan signed the formal withdrawal. He asked if I wanted to be notified when they move out. I said no. I'm done watching. Done waiting. The floorboard in my old house still holds the green envelope. Maybe one day Mateo will find it. Maybe not. I wrote it for him, but also for me. Proof that I was never missing, just erased. Birds skim the low fence. Somewhere behind the house, a neighbor's wind chime clinks once. I sip. Let the warmth stay in my chest. I don't need an audience. I don't need applause. I needed space. And now I have it. The mug rests against my lip. I close my eyes. Still here.